Welcome everybody in the Overkill studio. We are here this afternoon with 𝙇𝙤𝙧𝙡𝙙, our guest here, for the Symposium of the Overkill. So, like I just said, we're gonna spend 3 hours together to dive in the theme of the festival. We have a wonderful guest with us tonight to inspire us in this discussion. And I will introduce shortly everybody. And we hope you will join us with your question, with your remarks, with your references. So don't hesitate to use the chat to be with us. So I will shortly introduce everybody. I'm Marie-Jana, I'm the co-director of the Overkill Festival, and I will moderate this discussion with 𝙇𝙤𝙧𝙡𝙙, who's here with me. So she co-curates this program, and she will also moderate it with me. She's a PhD candidate from the University of Enschede here, and she will tell more about her research shortly after. With us we have Natasha Tonte here. Hi Natasha, she's
Hi.
artist and a graphic designer, and she presents her project in our online exhibition Pest to Power. She's calling from Indonesia here, so it's really late for her compared to us, so we're really thankful for this. We have here also with us 𝙬𝙤𝙧𝙡𝙙 Longpot, who's from aboriginal territories in cyberspace and initiative for indigenous futures, calling from Canada, so the other side of the world for us. And we have Barnaby Steele, a co-founder of the Marshmallow Laserfist in London, from whom we present Tree Hugger in our online exhibition, so a video version of the VR installation. And we hope that Iris San, co-founder of Fridays for Future Digital, will pop in at some moment in the screen. But she will join for her presentation also later and for the discussion. So that's for our guest, and we wanted to start this whole symposium with a little introduction. We bring you back to last year when we started discussing this theme and this idea of working together. So, Patty, maybe it's nice if you go back to just before you got this PhD, and what were you actually? What was your interest in your study?
Right. And so, should I say first what the study is about, or
you can? Yes.
Right. So I am. My research right now is in the Department of Philosophy at the University of Twente, and I am focusing on climate activism and how activists are appropriating digital technologies and digital platforms to organize their movement. So my interest before that were exactly that, I would say. I was quite fascinated to see how activists were organizing. And we're kind of like creating this I don't know how to call them, like if clans or networks of actions that like transcended national boundaries. So there were international demonstrations, like the global climate strikes from Fridays for Future, or the International Rebellion Week of Extinction Rebellion, and I was just as a philosopher of technology, I was thinking, well, these technologies are in a way having like a huge political impact on the movement itself and on how this message is spread. So this is, I think that this is what sort of like pushed me into this topic that I'm now researching. Yeah.
Thank you. And then you had, I remember, because you mentioned that this Extinction Rebellion movement, so you're part of this movement, and then you, what was really fascinating for me, it was that the energy and the enthusiasm you had when you were talking about this. So not only as going in the street angry, but getting a lot of energy from demonstrating, and a lot of creative ways of demonstrating. Also, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with Extinction Rebellion, and maybe if there's creative things that you did?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that indeed for me, the experience that I've had as an activist with Extinction Rebellion is that you get, especially with there's a lot of organizing that goes behind protest or going into the street, like marching and things like this. Or acts of civil disobedience. So there's a lot of coordination and discussing. Okay, what are the values of the movement? What are the demands? What do we want to achieve? But I think that what for me it's most valuable about these experiences is being part of a group that it has a lot of motivation and a lot of this will of creating a change. So not kind of like conforming with how things are right now. I think that many people are quite concerned about environmental collapse and like all these social problems that are becoming like bigger and bigger. So there's a lot of people that feel frustrated, and that feel like that the world is too the way in which the world works is already so well established that we cannot make a change out of it. But when you go into these actions and when you surround yourself with these people, you realize like that there's another way in which you can frame things, which is you can decide to stand up from your chair and say like, I am going to enact the things in the world, in the direction that I want the world to be. Yeah. If that makes sense.
I see that this idea of so demonstration put you a little bit in motion.
Yeah.
This is also a really interesting thing. I think also that will come back probably in this discussion. So I see. Is this something now that you can connect with the way you do your research? Are you I heard this term a few weeks ago, activist, a researcher activist, something like this?
I mean, absolutely. I think that the way that you frame your work as well, what you decide to focus on is super important, and it like creating a narrative around climate change and the politics of climate change is super important. So if we only talk about problems, then we don't, we miss the like all of the action that is going on behind, and all of the effort and the enthusiasm and motivation that many people have to make things better. So if you, I think that part of my research focus on activism is trying to bring some balance to this narrative, to say, hey, there's a lot of people that are doing things to walk in a direction, that is going to be a lot more constructive. So I do find that this focus on activism, it's in a way an act of activism in itself.
Yeah. I see what you... Nice. So if I come back to the few steps we had to construct this program, so we talked a little bit about your research. You are a regular visitors of Ziekenhuis, of our place here. So we you know how we work and how we like to play and to disturb our visitors in their way of interacting with us. We went, so this year we started actually just before we had to go in lockdown. We screened this film Tangirl from the 90s, where, so I don't know if everybody remember this movie, but it's a movie, a bit typical movie from the 90s, where there's not a lot of water left, and there's the bad corporation who owns all the water, and there's this group of cool rebels who just live a little bit more in harmony with plants, and who harvest or who gets access to water illegally.
Right.
And the plot was really interesting. The story turns a little bit of a typical bad guys against the cool rebels. So, but after watching this together and with the help of Patty, we tried to rewrite the whole scenario of this film with giving water the main role. So that how could we make all those people fighting for water be a bit on the side, and give water the space it deserves, we thought, in this film. So we did this really fun workshop, and it was a totally stupid story that we came up with, but it was really interesting to try to also to talk about, remember, the vocabulary, because we were saying, we have to give a voice to the sea, and or to the water, and then we said, giving a voice is such a human thing to do, that it's
right.
The water doesn't have a voice, and it is not the way it expresses itself, and so we had this really interesting beginning of discussion. And then we had to go in lockdown, and then we had to find another way to work. And maybe you can tell your experience, because the next step is we read this article Bruno Latour wrote about where do we land, and after, not just after this corona crisis, but since we are in those crises in plural. How now that we have maybe this time, or he really asked us those confronting questions: what do we do now, and how do we want to get out of this isolation time? So we tried with the help of Frédéric Lassen, who have this whole project with his game Politics of Nature. We hosted this workshop together, and Patty was a participant. So can you tell us a bit how it was for you?
Right. Yeah. I actually, like, now I realize we've had a very active year of exploring. Of exploring this kind of which ways films and games could help us to understand how we relate to all kinds of entities or other beings that are not in a way that, it's like anthropocentric and like a very human way. And I think that this is what I got from this Tank Girl workshop, when we were trying to think about as if we were the water, and how there was like water scarcity, and to think like, how would it be if we were in a way like unable to exploit water resources as it seems like a lot of companies do it right now, and it was happening in the film as well. And then when we got a little bit more into the philosophy of Bruno Latour, which is someone I use a lot in my research as well. It was really interesting to see where he has a kind of like a long history of trying to understand the agency of non-humans in society and in politics, and how do we try to understand our interactions with maybe with technologies or with animals or with plants through this kind of like inclusive perspective. I thought it was very interesting to have this exploration happen exactly at the time where the pandemic happened, because I felt that in a way it was kind of like of course it was a kind of warning sign, to say that okay, there is increasingly more and more proofs that the way that we are dealing with these interactions with other things that are not human is not working out. You know, it's clearer than ever, I think, that it's unsustainable. And so now we have to explore all those ways. So I think, I think that this active year of workshops and of exploring, you know, how we can see these perspectives have also had quite an impact in me and in my research as well. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Yeah, I remember that was also quite an emotional workshop, and we were somehow, especially me, realizing that we could be also a killing machine. I remember that we had this notion we were. And this responsibility we're suddenly or re-confronted with right now with the situation we are in. This responsibility we have towards everything around us, actually. Like
right.
that was with this workshop we really had to talk about this relation we have as human and with everything in our environment. So that was a big step.
Yeah.
And now we are here, and this morning still we had a little I don't know, like a little way to prepare today. So inspired by the work of Barnaby, we realized a few weeks ago that in Enschede actually there's a really big sequoia tree also in one of the park. So we met this morning with Patty next to this sequoia tree, and we did not hug the tree literally, but we had this little discussion. We hanged at the tree, exactly, and that was really nice. And so I invite you, if you live in Enschede, to hang around this sequoia tree in the Landeboer Park. I don't know if I say it right. But in this park, not too far from the university, so Patty can walk by all the time. And we felt a little bit connected to the story we're trying to tell tonight. So that's really nice. So I hope with this that you have a little bit of a context of how we prepared, of how Patty worked with us, or how we did this here. And now we're gonna dive in the inspiring stories of our guest. And Natasha is here, so we're gonna start with Natasha. Natasha Tomte was introduced to us thanks to Isabelle Harvey, who co-curates the art program of the Overkill. So I think you met in Indonesia, and I could listen to one of the interview you did with her, and where you talk a little bit about Pest of Power and also of some new project we're really curious about. But so in our online exhibition we present this project Pest of Power, and I think it's nice maybe if you tell us what is this about. And welcome, Natasha.
Thank you. Pest of Power, or Hama Memberkati in Bahasa Indonesia, started as a website project from a web residency program from ZKMN Academy Show Solitude, and it's also related to my previous project, which is Manifesto of Tactile and Fanciful Tactics on how to build a speculative future, especially in point 9, which it was talking about I declare a war on rational thinking. So I believe some of you might already seen the video in Overkill website. In this presentation, I will read some part of the speech, the text that is not in the exhibition. It's the letter to cockroach. Can you see me holding this book of
Yes,
cockroach?
yes.
Okay. Dear cockroach, there is always seems to be a sense of embarrassment when guests found cockroaches in our house. Like there is always a sense of embarrassment when presenting my idea to the public. I always fear, but when I look upon you, though it is strange to watch you sometimes, tiny little friend that's often found that upside down in my room. The way that you rage is somehow intriguing. So much power, so much weakness. I am terrified by the possibilities of you. There has always been a construction of myths, of old wives' tales, of people listening to certain kind of music, from death metal to dangdut, of people who had bad tattoos, of group girls graduating from a national ranked university, having a perfect collection of Instagram posts, of people who had their hair dreadlocked and wore only red, green, and yellow color, and of the slang by the lower marginalized classes in their own communities. Practicing alternative ways of doing things might be a good reaction as questioning the embodied fears, stigmas, and knowledge. We might grow up with societal roots which brought us here. The way we existed today in this semi-capitalist controlled way of existing. We can question this down by breaking down what is seen as perfection and systemized life. It's hard to pull apart when we know that what we have known as bad idea is always negative or useless to us. None of this horror I knew anything about until I realized our lives depends on who is authorized to decide.
We lost Natasha. So, I don't know where Natasha went. Maybe it was a bit heavy.
Maybe it was heavy on her internet.
Natasha? Oh, she's away.
She's okay. Okay, we can.
She will come back. Maybe we wait a minute for
Maybe
Natasha.
we wait a minute, and I can, in the meantime, say that I saw her film in the online exhibition, and it was intense, but like really cool in a good way. She's back.
Am I disconnected?
Yes.
Yes. Oh.
But I hear, yes? You hear?
So we might grow up with societal roots which brought us here. The way we existed today in the semi-capitalist controlled way of existing. We can question this down by breaking down what is seen as perfection and systemized life. It's hard to pull apart when we know down that what we have known as bad idea is always negative or useless to us. None of this horror I knew anything about until I realized our lives depends on who is authorized to decide fact from fiction. I hold no opinions towards debauchery. How about you, cockroaches? Science was put about herbal remedies because mom only trusts doctors and pharmaceutical medication. My mom has power, whilst my dad doesn't care if he drinks fake mineral water because he got no money. Mom claims that she was an atheist while at the same time he smirks at that weird church that distributes Hebrew newsletters on Sunday. I was once had a family driver. I saw him drinking debris of cigarette ashes mixed with water when he got abandoned by his different religion girlfriend, and he knew he would end his life soon. Both mom and dad don't go to church these days, but I know they still believe in the afterlife because they threw a funeral mass, complete with a sermon given by a priest upon our family driver's death. Mom won't let me had myself a tattoo, but Dad has one, and Mom married Dad anyway. If life is stranger than fiction, then fiction is stranger than speculation, then speculation is stranger than life. I see it as a loop. Societal roots that we grew up with might have a belief of the ancient fiction called religion. But each religion has its own embodied storytelling structure. I sometimes cry behind my cat eye glasses, out of rationality and the way Pierce says as rational. Every being has their own flesh-made soap opera, which sometimes is spine-shuddering and insightful dark womb of herbal ecstasies. I dreamt of having an ability to do parthenogenesis as well as not possessing nociceptor. Glitch and vermins like this tiny friend we know as pests in daily lives seemingly might not a proper thing to brought up into a proper lifestyle. But rethinking about you, my tiny little friend, may bring me into another paradise, a pure imagination, the land that tonic of immortal life exists. Dear cockroaches, I know that I don't know how to communicate with you, and I know you mostly not from yourself, but from the cautionary tales and sometimes the myth traverse through my broken screen of iOS. This audacious claim seems utterly fantastical and maybe a little bit delusional upon this crash cultural cage that I might see as a sad humor and maybe embarrassment in the future. I apologize that I stole Hoi Hoi Trap a Roach from the toilet of one of the skyscraper 3 years ago in Jakarta and made purchase of the same thing again upon making this project. I dedicate this project to you. A personal account, a fiction, essays, adaptations, and quasi-conversation forming a multi-faced existence behavior while studying and befriending the cockroach. Yours sincerely, Natasha.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did I don't want to cut your presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for this letter, Natasha. I'm curious. Did you write this at before you started this project, or as a conclusion of your project with the cockroach?
It's I think it's just like when the project is almost done and I had time to pause and reflect on what I've been doing and how I see the cockroach and how it inspires me. Other than that, theories of cockroach and those kind of theories of speculating future, it's I'm more reflecting on how cockroach inspired me in my daily life.
I was wondering as well whether you how do you experience a difference before your project and now, like if you see a cockroach, I can imagine that there's like already all this work that you've done behind it. Like do you notice that your interaction changes, or like how you feel when there's like a cockroach around changes?
I think, it made me some reflection on how to see the so-called proper lifestyle, and then how I'm trying to look the possibility of unlearning human evolution for manufacturing future by gaining knowledge through the agency of cockroaches. And through cockroach, I tried to see like what considered as past might be a key to lead the sustainable future. Cockroach has existed almost since before human evolved. They almost unchanged for perhaps 250 million years. And they being marginalized for years and years as a creature carrying disease and treated as a fearsome species by human counterpart. Cockroach bear its agency as the only single species that could survive in many extinction events and epochal transformation. Also, the judgment towards cockroach is built by the hyper-sterilized biopolitics idea of proper lifestyle and overproduction of synthetic commodity, and human disattachment to waste generated cockroach as a peripheral creature outside humans' cupola.
Can I touch upon something that you said before you read the letter, but I also noticed that it came up on the letter as well. You said that you declare a war on rational thinking. And then during the letter, you also mentioned that, for instance, like science was preferred over like herbal remedies, and so I was wondering, if you could expand a little bit more on that aspect. Why do you think that like is the role in rational thinking in deciding this like proper lifestyle that you talk about?
Maybe if we reflect on today's condition, human is considered as the subject. In other words, human is the center of the ecosystem. However, in Path to Power, why is it like I'm trying to say it's related to the manifesto of like declaring war on rational thinking? Because I would like to propose a fiction or maybe some kind of thought-provoking practice in which the notion of human is revisited using agency of cockroaches. How do we build a sustainable future for multi-species interactions? I attempt to see a cockroach as a case study, turning what is considered as past into powerful knowledge as a form of approach to science fictioning, like less science, more fictions. And because for me, fiction is a platform on which to narrate a story, and the findings, and as well as method of to project my speculation through fictional approach. I can produce a language as a practice of world building.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, Natasha, I have a question from the public here. We have Miley M who asks, what would the cockroach's advice be with regard to our survival in the face of extinction? So I don't know if you talk in the name of the cockroaches right now, but this is the question we're getting.
I think she couldn't hear the question.
Oh, sorry. Shall I repeat the question? Natasha?
I think I also lost her sound again. Okay.
Natasha?
Yes?
Yes. So I have a question from the public here. I think people definitely think you're going to talk in the name of the cockroaches. So Miley M asks, what would the cockroaches' advice be with regard to our survival in the face of extinction?
Sorry, can you repeat again?
What would the cockroach advice be with regard to our survival in the face of extinction?
I think maybe the relationship between cockroach and human is supposed to be... Can you hear me? Hi? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe the cockroach from the Institute of Human Studies will say...
I think we're touching a real problem. Communication with cockroaches anyway.
But maybe we can like try to bring this question.
Yeah, we keep it here, and then we can maybe try to answer this. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, Natasha. We can't. Yeah. Natasha, it's a bit difficult right now. It's cutting a lot, so I think. I'm sorry.
All right.
No,
yes.
I think we're gonna we're gonna try to fix your sound with our production team here, and then we're gonna go to May's presentation, and we're gonna come back to these questions when the sound is a little bit fixed. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
So I will let Patty introduce May's, and then we can jump into the next.
Yes. All right. Okay. Our second speaker is 𝙬𝙤𝙧𝙡𝙙, and he is the Associate Director of the Skins Workshop at the Aboriginal Territories in cyberspace. He's a digital media and art educator. He's a video game developer and producer as well, and he's joining from Montreal. So Mace, take it away.
Thanks, Patty, and thanks, Marie, for hosting and inviting me to be a speaker today. I'm just going to share my screen and start my presentation. Can you see my slide?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Let's just hold on here. Okay. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. I actually can't hear you.
Oh, and this is also creating feedback.
Okay, just hold on.
Cockroach.
You know what? Sorry about that. I had something I wanted to show, but I think maybe I'll just wait to share that separately, just because I'm going to be doing mostly talking.
All right.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Okay. So hi everyone, Sego. My name is 𝙤𝙙𝙧𝙡𝙙. I am Mohawk from Six Nations of the Grand River, which is located in 𝙬𝙤𝙧𝙡𝙙 Treaty Territory in Southern Ontario in Canada. And I'm joining you virtually today from my home in 𝙬𝙤𝙧𝙡𝙙𝙧, or Montreal, which is on the traditional territory of the 𝙬𝙤𝙧𝙧𝙡𝙙 Nation, which is the Mohawk Nation. So as Patty introduced me, I am the Skins Workshop's Associate Director with Aboriginal Territories in Cyberspace and the Initiative for Indigenous Futures, which are research organizations based at Concordia University here in Montreal. And I'm also the creator of a little video game set in a post-apocalyptic future called Terra Nova. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about my work as the Skins Workshop's director and the Skins Workshop's initiative, and show you some of our projects that deal with Indigenous futurisms, and also speak a little bit about Terra Nova as well. So just a little bit of background. AbTech is a research creation network of scholars, artists, and community members who have been supporting Indigenous presences within video games, websites, and virtual worlds of cyberspace since 2005 and even earlier. And currently, AbTech's biggest project is managing the Initiative for Indigenous Futures, or IIF, research partnership between organizations that are interested in thinking about how Indigenous peoples project themselves into the future through storytelling, art, culture, scholarship, and digital media. So AbTech is co-directed by Professor Jason Edward Lewis, who is a scholar and a poet, and who is Cherokee, Hawaiian, and Samoan. And his partner and collaborator, 𝙬𝙤𝙧𝙡𝙙𝙧, who is an artist based here in 𝙬𝙤𝙧𝙡𝙧 and is 𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸𝚸 AbTech and IF back in 2017 as a graduate research assistant, as I was starting my master's degree at Concordia, studying Indigenous video game development and the practices and processes associated with making games from an Indigenous perspective. And after graduating, I transitioned into a full-time role as the Skins Workshops Associate Director. And I'm now taking the lead for that aspect of the IIF research project. So for over 10 years, Skins has taught Indigenous youth how to turn stories from their communities into digital media creations like video games, machinima, machinima being machine cinema, so movies made in virtual environments, 3D printing, and more. The name Skins represents the act of reskinning objects and characters in video games. So thinking about, like Fortnite and how you can change the appearance of your character. And in doing this, reskinning work, we're seeing it as supporting Indigenous peoples in the pursuit of telling their stories in new ways. So currently, our workshops are divided into 3 different streams. We have the video game workshops, where we explore the various tools and techniques for making video games from scratch. Machinima, which is machine cinema, that remediate Indigenous stories as movies made in virtual environments, as well as our 7th gen character design workshop. And 7th gen means 7th generation character design workshops, where we ask participants to imagine a descendant of theirs who lives 7 generations in the future, and to create a character sketch or avatar or a 3D printed figurine based on the descendant that they imagine. So our video game workshops can be as short as 3 hours or as long as 3 weeks. For our shorter workshops, we teach the youth participants the basics of game design tools like Twine or Bitsy, which are both browser-based and very easy to learn and pick up. And in doing so, they can create something small over the course of one short session of just a few hours. But the images that you see here are from our longer 3-week intensive workshops.
Mace?
Hello?
I'm sorry, but you don't share your pictures, huh? So you tell us we don't see the pictures.
Thank you for interrupting me. I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, don't worry.
Yeah, I've been like showing my slides and going through my presentation, and I haven't been showing anything.
Sorry, we were not sure, and I did not.
Yeah, I mean,
That's okay.
everything you've said so far is like fascinating. So
Yeah.
we
could
didn't
follow,
need the slides.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so sorry about that.
Hopla.
I'll
We
just
see
go
it
back.
now.
I'll
Yeah.
just go back a little bit, just so
Alright.
you know you can see. So this is me. These are our co-directors, Jason Edward Lewis and 𝙬𝙤𝙧𝙡𝙙, the logos for Abtech and IF. Our Skins project, workshops on Aboriginal storytelling and digital media that have been around for 15 years. These are different workshop streams: video game, machinima, 7th gen character design. And so here are the images I just referenced that are from our longer 3-week-long intensive workshops, where we gather everyone in a big studio space, and we work closely with community partners to create entire games that teach all aspects of video game creation. So from writing the game narrative to the designing of the game mechanics to produce, a total package project. So I just wanted to note, all of these games are free to download at the URL posted in this slide, indigenousfutures.net/workshops/skins video game workshop. And there are 6 of them in total so far. And so now about the machinima workshops. So 𝙬𝙤𝙧𝙡𝙙 herself is an artist, and she makes machinima as part of her own artistic practice. So we created a workshop to teach others to do it too. And during these machinima workshops, we work with a group of participants typically over a 5-day period to write a story, set up a custom virtual movie set and avatar actors for filming. And then the actors act out the scenes, and we cut the footage into a short film. And these images you're seeing now are from a machinima workshop we did with the Mackenzie Art Gallery, which is one of our IIF partners. And they're located in Regina, Saskatchewan. Yeah, we engaged just a small group of local youth there. And this machinima that was created with this group was a post-apocalyptic version of a traditional Nehiyah or Cree story about how the loon got its walk. So this is what I did want to show. It's about 5 minutes long. So I will reshare.
Nice.
And I'm just going to mute my sound because
Of course.
I don't want some feedback happening.
Okay.
I could go for some duck. What's in the bag, Wasaki-chan?
Don't answer them yet. They need to be closer.
What's in the bag, Wasaki-chan?
What is in the bag, Wasaki-chan? It's my sundae.
Will you sing us a song?
Yeah, but it needs to be in a lodge. Let's get started now. First you put some sticks right here, you put some sticks right there, put some sticks on top, and you lash it all about. You're doing it correctly and making it look nice. That's what the song's about. Put some sticks right there, you put some sticks right here, put some sticks on top, and you lash it all about. You're doing it correctly and making it look nice. That's what the song's about. The lodge is complete. The lodge is complete. The lodge is complete. Now get inside it. Stand in a circle with your eyes closed tightly. That's what the song's about. He's gonna kill us all! Owie, ow, 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 ow. Oh. Ow, 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 ouch, ow, ow, ooh, ow, ooh, ow, ow, ooh, ah, ah, ooh, ow, ooh, ow. And that's why the loon walks that way today.
So that was the machinima.
Nice.
I'm just going to reshare again because of the feedback. Okay, are we good?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So the third stream, again, is the 7th Gen character design workshops, where we ask participants to imagine and sketch first a descendant of theirs that lives 7 generations in the future. And and this is a way for them to learn about character design that is often a big part of creating things like video games and machinima, as we know. And we also have like many different versions of this workshop that expand upon the initial character design sketch that participants do. So for example, here we have these images that show the result of workshops that also taught participants how to do 3D modeling, like with the printed character on the left side, and then also avatar design as well, where we shot digital portraits of their characters that were recreated as avatars. I also want to take a little bit of time to talk about this specific design sketch done by one of us, Professor Lewis's PhD students, Suzanne Kite, who is also a very talented performance and music artist. Suzanne took this workshop herself and imagined her descendant as someone who had adapted to living in a future where everyone is under hyper-surveillance by a colonial state. This character wears a tech cloak that hides them from being watched and has sensors woven into their braids that allow them to hear things in their environments that are normally imperceivable otherwise. So Suzanne is also someone who works with sensors for her performance art and created this performance where she literally became her 7th gen character. This is her computerized costume from that performance piece with the sensor braid and all on the left side there. And this is just a still from her performance titled Listener, based around this character. So now I'll talk a little bit about my game, Terra Nova. This project was the product of my research creation thesis that I did as part of my studies in the Master in Media Studies program at Concordia University here in Montreal. It's a cooperative game for 2 players that explores what first contact might look like between Indigenous and settler peoples of the future. So each player playing assumes the role of either Terra, an elder earthborn landkeeper, or Nova, a youthful starborn inventor. Terra and Nova can both walk around, they can jump, and they can interact with people and things in their environment. The screen is split into half to start the game, which reflects the contrasting Earthborn and Starborn perspectives that both characters hold. And as the game progresses, the 2 characters eventually come together and the split screen becomes a single screen perspective. Players must then work together to solve puzzles that require both of their unique skills to overcome, that eventually reveal more about their mysterious intertwined narratives. So I think this game and some of the stuff that we create in our workshops with AbTech and IF are really relevant to the symposium theme of the end of the world. And I think this concept of the apocalypse and of the end of the world is something that Indigenous peoples and other marginalized peoples, peoples of color, Black folks, etc., know very, very well in light of colonial histories, from Europe and other powers, etc. So yeah, I think we draw a lot of inspiration as creators on those experiences of our ancestors, but that we're also doing it in a constructive way, through art making, like Terra Nova, and imagining Indigenous futurisms as well. I think it can be really generative for people doing the work, but then also audiences of the work as well. Just as a side note, everyone's welcome to check out and play Terra Nova with a friend, hopefully socially distanced, at terranovagame.com. Nyawa, thank you. Happy to take any questions and comments from here.
Thank you, Mace. That was a really nice presentation, and if I just can comment before we go to the questions, the how you finished your presentation at the end, saying like how the work being done at APTEC and the Initiative for Indigenous Future is so relevant to the theme of this festival is precisely why I was so excited to have you in this symposium, because indeed it feels like the indigenous communities have this experience with this sense of the end of the world, you know, and of being, you know, I don't know, like perhaps having this a kind of like outlook of apocalypse and of the world as you know it being taken away from you. But what you do in APTEC and in the IIF, I think it's a very constructive way of kind of like retaking the future for yourself and saying like this is how we like build it, you know, for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one other thing too is like, you know, indigenous peoples have been through multiple apocalyptic events before, and so, you know, we're still here, you know, all over the world. And I think, you know, when we have conversations about the future and speculating and talking about building, you know, the future world that we all want to live in together, I think indigenous voices are and communities are like vital for that work to be incorporated. So I'm really happy that I'm here talking today and presenting on some of the work that we do. And I mean, I think art and making and digital media are all really things that can contribute to this conversation. So, yeah.
We have one question from a machinima specialist. So Isabelle Harvey, who also curated some part of this festival, is actually asking you, Mace, in which game or virtual environment are you doing your machinima? So can you tell us a little bit if you, where do you take?
Yeah. So the short answer is Second Life.
Oh.
But extending the answer a little bit more, ABTEC has been running our virtual headquarters in Second Life at a location called ABTEC Island since pretty close to when Second Life came out back in 2004 or 5. I think we've had ABTEC Islands around since at least 2006 or 2007. And that's where we film all of our machinima in kind of like a closed movie set type environment. But we also have curated spaces where people can come and hang out from the public at any time. So if you're interested in checking us out on Second Life, please do. We also run weekly sessions on ABTEC Island where I will be there personally to hang out with people who come. And that happens every Friday from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'm not sure what all the conversions are for everybody in the call right now, but yeah.
I was actually I went to this space myself a few days ago, but it was when so it was not it was open, but without you guys. And we were discussing this with Patty. It's if I have to describe it really shortly. So this is a virtual space with a few exhibition space, and I could enter this sort of studio where there were all this character or costume presented on mannequin, and an exhibition space, a bit like a classical way of presenting the artwork with some walls but open to the air, and some nice outside platform and an area with a demonstration with boards. I don't know if some happening or a real or virtual demonstration happened, but they were all this board from hashtag Black Lives Matter. And I was, of course, if you go to those virtual environments, you directly want to touch everything. So I was a bit trying to see, can I wear those costumes? And then suddenly I really realized, I'm really intruding in, I would not behave like this in a museum. And we were discussing this with Patty, and we were wondering, how do you feel about the visitors that the space is open and you invite us there? How do you feel if who uses this space that is specifically made for indigenous people. How do you feel that everybody just run in there freely? Or
I think our opinions about it have changed over time. Since when I've been with AbTech, at least, we've been very, open and welcoming to anybody who wants to come, because it's not necessarily a space that we've made for Indigenous people, although, it is supposed to be a place where Indigenous folks from anywhere can come and feel safe.
yeah,
But it is, an Indigenous determined space first and foremost. So, opening it up to the public of any person of any background, like, we want to share that space with people, and there's really very little that people can do at the moment, based on some of the security measures we put in place to feel like to do things in that space that we don't necessarily agree with. So it's a case by case basis. Like, we're there every week, we're always checking up on it, so it's not too much of a worry for us at the moment. But I think that's actually a reflection that a lot of people have, Marie, about, like, how am I supposed to act in this space that is very, like Indigenous determined? And I mean, if you're asking that question, I think that's a good start. But come and hang out with us next time. We can have those.
yeah,
those
definitely. I really feel welcome. It was not a worry. It was more. Directly comes. Especially, we also reflect a little bit on the term territories that you use in your title, and then we thought, we arrive in this territory, and this is we just have to reflect a little bit what is our attitude when we enter those spaces, and what are try to respect the rules and the behavior which are asked. And it's not, virtual spaces feel sometimes a little bit accessible and more free, and actually they also have rules, and we also have to reflect on those interactions in there. So,
and people can be anonymous too, so there's a whole other aspect to that as well, where you can be someone you're not in real life, and there's some amazing things that can happen with that, and then there's also some things that maybe are a little bit more nefarious, or possibility for damage or hurt. But it's about being open and having that conversation. I will just say one more thing. So the exhibition space, the gallery that you visited too, with the open air kind of design, we are actively programming for that show, and I think we should have a show coming up, launching in the new year, around the end of January. So please keep in touch
can I
with
ask
AbTech on
then?
social media, and
Sorry.
we'll be having like an art exhibition opening.
Nice. Can I ask then, are the artwork especially created for a virtual environment, or are they made in the physical world and then translated into something virtual?
So the show that's there right now is a virtualized version of a previous exhibition that happened back in September 2019 in Montreal, where we worked with a group of youth to create avatar portraits of their 7th generation characters. And then those portraits were printed on banners and physically hung in a gallery space. But we figured, if we're going to be curating for AbTech Gallery, we could kind of build this show in a different way. So it wouldn't just be printed banners. It could actually be, huge wall-size portraits, and then also we could incorporate some of the virtual items that the avatars themselves were actually wearing, and actually build little displays of the avatar designs. So that was really interesting. And I will say, for the upcoming show, it's called A Thread That Never Breaks, and it was slated to be part of Indigenous Fashion Week Toronto, that unfortunately had to move online because of the pandemic. But we're reimagining it virtually, and so we're remediating all of the artworks that had physical versions as virtual renditions, and we're formatting it virtually. So it's almost like new artwork in a way.
Yeah, it sounds like a cool challenge with a lot of difficulties. I
Yeah.
can imagine.
Nice.
We almost have to break, but we had a little question from the public, and I think it's interesting to ask it for Jenny Jabald. I'm sorry if I don't, Benny Jabald. I'm sorry if I don't say this right. So it's for you, Mace. How would you describe the differences between an indigenous determined and a non-indigenous determined space, both online or physical?
So sorry, indigenous data mined.
No,
The
determined.
term, yeah.
Oh, determined. I'm
Yeah,
so sorry.
No, that's my accent. Sorry.
Well, I think, you know, power and control are like very important things to acknowledge when, you know, in almost like all aspects of the spaces that we're operating in. So, you know, Abtech Island is a space that we've been working on and working in for a very long time. And I mean, I'll just use it as an example. Like I'm not sure if there are many other spaces like that in Second Life, you know, that are determined, you know, by an active indigenous community, based, you know, together in a physical space. So I think it's pretty clear, like, you know, these online spaces are spaces that in which indigenous peoples and communities have a certain level of authority and power and the ability to determine what purposes these spaces serve.
Nice, thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's a great question. Thanks.
We have a little break of
Yes.
5 minutes, so then you can get out of your screen a little bit. And so it's in my computer 6:35, so we come back at 6:40, and we hope to go on with this nice presentation. And then so after the break, we will have Barnaby presenting his work. Yes, see you in 5 minutes. So we are back, and Iris is back also. So we have a complete symposium now, a complete guest. And we're gonna go directly to the talk of Barnaby still. So Barnaby, you're an artist, you're co-founder of Marshmallow Laserfaced in London. And you are creating with this collective immersive experience, connecting with the natural world, and I think since a little bit more than 10 years. So there's also a really interesting evolution of the use of technology within these last 10 years. In our exhibition in the Overkill Festival, we present Tree Hugger, a video version of Tree Hugger, with the sound, which is going all over the exhibition. You did last year the impressive installation We Live in an Ocean of Air, which was presented in London, for as far as I see. So this one was a multiplayer VR installation. And for us in the Netherlands this year, you present in the next museum a new installation which is called Distortion in Space-Time about black holes. And I give you the screen. Welcome.
Great, thanks for having me. So before I dive in, I can see my presentation. Can you see that on the second squared sheet, shared screen?
Yes.
Like my pink hand. Yep, okay, great. So I've prepared a sort of, I guess, a little presentation that's more to do with the inspiration behind the work and the journey we've been on as a studio. So I'll whiz through this. This was the sound check. Yeah, we've got sound. That's my little baby. So we had, actually, this is more like a midlife crisis talk, because I guess when we started the company, it was set up around doing cool shit with technology, and we were kind of so excited by the potential of new technologies to immerse the senses, you know, drone shows, moving lights, sort of anything really that's like exploring a spatial experience, extending out beyond the screen, having screens create immersion, playing with caustics, moving lights, so lots of experimentation. And I think it's, you know, we've been doing that for a while, and at a certain point you get out of bed and you ask the question, like, why? Like, what is going on here? Like, what are we doing? And I felt a little bit like this guy, you know, wrapped up in the technology, playing with all, and when you look out the window, you know, I've been born in a city, and I guess there's a transition that went on in my life when I've got a beautiful boy, Elio, and there's been some big changes, and it just started to ask this question of my disconnect to nature, feeling my disconnect to nature. And my colleague Ersten, my co-director, came up with these lovely slides. It's like, hands up who can, normally you do this in a theatre, so it's like, hands up who knows these brands, and everyone puts their hands up. And then it's like, okay, hands up who knows which trees these leaves are from. And actually, I still don't know all of the trees in here, but everyone knows this leaf. It's got a bit more. It's had quite a good advertising campaign. But the point is that, you know, in these times when it's becoming clear that the impact of our behaviours, you know, mainly the way we behave and the way we consume in the cities is having a dramatic impact on the environment in terms of agriculture and really the whole planet. And so there's this worrying trend, and we're pretty aware of it. But part of our brainstorming and thinking about, you know, what role can we play in doing something positive for people and for the planet, we sort of have to acknowledge that more and more people are moving to cities, and, you know, it is a trend that there's increased urbanization, and when you're born into an environment where you've got air-conditioned air, you've got water coming from a tap, you've got chicken shrink wrapped on a shelf, tuna in a can. You know, it's your connection to nature mainly comes through sort of David Attenborough, and you know, to really sort of understand what our connection is to the world when we're living in a global society, maybe we can use technology to create intimate experiences with nature. And so I just wanted to touch quickly on these pillars that are behind the kind of logic of where we got to on this whole unraveling. And one of them is, in order to change any behavior, there has to be a real shift in your heart. So in this book, Soil, Soul, Society by Satish Kumar, he talks about in order for any permanent change to happen, and in order to shift from consumerist mindset to a conservation mindset, there has to be a falling in love. And you know, everything we experience, we can all relate to the love we feel for people we spend a lot of time with and for our pets. And so, you know, this kind of intimacy or intimate experience creates a deeper knowing and a falling in love process. So we're thinking, oh, well, can you create that deep experience and that deep connection to nature virtually? You know, can we bring the wonder of nature to the city? That was one question we had. And then the other one, which is another pillar of what we do, Richard Feynman, who's our hero. Richard's our hero. He's like the best science communicator the world has ever seen. And his in this talk, he is basically saying, my friend who's an artist has like when he looks at a flower, he can see the flower for like the texture in the flower. He's got a stronger aesthetic sense because he's trained his eye to look at the aesthetics of the flower. But when me, Richard, the scientist, looked at a flower, I know that the reason the petals are red is because they reflect the red color spectrum. And it asks a question that the reason that the red is a co-evolution with the eyeball of a pollinator. And it asks the question, does that pollinator have an aesthetic sense like a human does? And then there's the inner workings of the flower and the photosynthesis. And you know, he sort of goes on for a while about just the beauty of a flower, and the sense of awe and wonder for a flower is only ever enhanced by your understanding of it. So the more you understand, the more awe and sort of wonder you feel for it. And my experience of science is always true to this point. That science it's a lens on the world beyond our perception, and it tells us stories that a lot of the time just seem completely ridiculous, and they all point to the sort of the beauty of existence. And so I guess these are the kind of these are the pillars that are going into our work. And now I want to just go into a little bit of technology and perception. So these horses, everyone was painting horses like this. If you watch a horse galloping in the field, they look like this. You can't see the shape their legs take and move too quickly. So this is the way the horse looks to the human eye. But then when we invent a piece of technology, the camera, we're able to freeze time and understand the pattern that a horse's legs take. Now, probably if you were to ask most people to draw a horse in motion, they would have this image in their head over this image, because we see this image through televisions, through slow motions. You can just pick up your iPhone now and film at 300 frames a second, and you get a window into a world beyond your perception. So the question is, when your memories, your experiences are mediated through technology, they actually affect the way you see reality and the way you think about the world around you. So that the same could be true here, that when you're looking at the night sky, even though you might not be conscious of it, somewhere in the background of your mind, in the background of your imagination, you're aware of these Hubble Space Telescope images. And so they're there in the background humming as you look up at the stars. But in 1881, you know, that was the best black and white photo you could get. So we knew something was there. So I definitely think that there's this relationship between the experiences we have and how they reflect in the way we see the world. So we did this project called In the Eyes of the Animal, and this was our first kind of, I guess, major artwork in the virtual space. And it's really, at the source of it, it's asking, you know, what happens when you take the headset off? You know, can we take somebody on a journey outside of their own bodies, outside of their skin, and offer them, almost like flavor their awareness through the senses of different organisms? You know, what's it like to have time sort of compressed or stretched depending on how quickly you process information? Actually, I'm going to jump into that bit in a moment. I've got this great Michael Pollan quote that I found. Michael Pollan's my hero at the moment. He's just ticking all my boxes. He's got a book called Changing Your Mind, which I really recommend. It's kind of like a psychedelic handbook. But yeah, this quote, looking at the world from another species' point of view is a cure for the disease of human self-importance. And I mean, that's all that needs to be said, really. I think there's a level of, in fact, it reminded me that the beautiful cockroach piece of how, you know, all it takes is for us to spend a bit of time and sort of meditate and put ourselves in the shoes of another organism to start to understand sort of how rare and how beautiful this little critter might be. So a project like this, you see the world through the senses of a mosquito, a dragonfly, a frog, and an owl. Gives you the opportunity to kind of meditate on what this reality might look like flavored through their senses. And definitely the kind of encouraging finale to this piece of work was that people stayed in the forest for quite a long time talking about, you know, that they were at the top of the tree. They're like, oh, Gladys, I was up there and then we were down in the pond, and like, I think I was a frog or and it did stimulate a curiosity that I think hit that goal of what happens when you take the headset off, you know, an experience that brings you closer to caring for the more than human world. So really this, you know, our work has sort of expanded upon this premise. And then we went into trees. So the big barrier between the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom is time. And it's sort of neatly articulated here. The duration of the beat of a hummingbird's wing is as concealed to our sensory organs as is the drifting of the continents. So what happens when you can accelerate time and create an experience where the day-night cycle of a tree is in sync with the human breath cycle, for example? And so the idea behind this project was actually when every time the sun rises and passes through the sky, the photosynthesis is activated and transpiration occurs. So water molecules sort of evaporate into the air, and that sucks more water up through the roots, through the sapwood. So when we started imagining this, you know, seeing this day-night cycle accelerate and seeing the water move through the tree, it creates a pulse, and that pulse is attached to the rhythm of the sun. But when you bring it closer to a human pulse, suddenly you start to engage with the tree as a living, breathing being. What I'm showing here, hopefully it's playing okay, is the source data from the scan we did, which was always too high resolution to experience in virtual reality. But as the technology evolves, the opportunity to update the experiences we're creating and kind of create an archive of rare and endangered ecosystems becomes a side project that we're spending more and more time on as the years go by. And unfortunately, you know, some of these places will become digital fossils. But the great thing about virtual reality, although it doesn't obviously replace anything, it can offer a very intimate, powerful experience of the scale and majesty of these organisms, and to be able to step inside a tree and experience the circulatory system and move up to the canopy is an experience that you could never have if you actually went there. I'm just going to whiz forward a bit because I've seen I'm kind of getting close to my time limit. One of the things that we've been looking at in our experiences is scent, and you know, trees can communicate through scent release, which is a really interesting fact. So within our experience, we worked with Sensible Technology, and we had this little kind of scent release device that allowed us to explore different scentscapes. So we start to think about an experience where you can move around, and when you push your head through the bark, you get that sappy smell, or you get that smell of soil when you get down low. So that's like an interesting component that adds a real sense of presence. So then into this piece, we live in an ocean of air. So I think a lot of our work is really science. If you think about it, science is pointing to the fact that there's no such thing as an individual. So there's only nested ecosystems. So the fact that we, in our skin, we feel like, oh, I'm Barney. I'm looking out from this spot. So I must, like, in here, I must be Barney. But when you break it down, it's like, well, what am I without a tree? So a tree is making the atmosphere that I breathe. So there is no human life without the plant kingdom. So we come second to that. There's no plants without the sun. And if you go internally, like, well, yeah, inside I'm teeming with bacteria. About half my cells are non-human, but even a human cell could be kind of considered an individual. So, oh, you draw a circle around that. They're breathing. You know, when I stop breathing, I just stop feeding my cells, and the cells die. So, you know, where is the individual in this whole collage? So it's really it's scientifically clear that everything is in symbiosis and relationship, and these scientific narratives all point to that as well. So with this experience, we took Tree Hugger a step further, and we visualized the flow of air between plants and human. I'll show you a bit of the piece here. I think that's going to play in the background. Let's just see. So you can think of it like umbilical cords connecting plant to human, and all we're doing is visualizing this invisible world, but it really blurs this boundary of where your body ends and where the tree begins. And I suppose in terms of the impact behind the projects we're creating, you know, what are we hoping to do? The dream is that we can give people a nudge towards expanding their compassion beyond themselves, their family, to extend to all of the other organisms that we're dependent on for life. And it could even be a selfish thing. It's like self-preservation. You know, I want the world to be here for my, you know, for generations to come, for my future family. You can think of it like that, but ultimately you have to understand that you're not isolated within your skin, that everything you do is connected to the other life forms that we share the planet with, and we're interdependent. So just to sort of wrap up, I'm going to skip beyond that. I just wanted to talk briefly about this latest project that we've done.
You have
how am I doing
couple
for
of
time?
minutes. Yeah.
A couple of minutes, okay. So a new project that we just, it's open in an art gallery that's shut, but hopefully it's going to open again soon. It's called The Tides Within Us. This book is a major inspiration for the work. It talks about, it's looking at this Chinese landscape painting, and I guess in summary, it coins this term existence tissue. And so the idea is that that on a certain level, everything is inseparable from anything else. It's all the tissue of existence, whether it's the mountains, the humans, the trees. Everything is emerging into existence and then out again. There's this constant flow. So this was quite an inspiring idea, and I think when you look at the human body, I'm just going to whiz through. When you look at the human body under the skin, we're these branching beings, and so our I guess our connection to the plant kingdom, or to these underlying branching patterns that flow through life on Earth. A lot of it is hidden from our view. So we worked with the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, who do some incredible medical imaging. This is blood flow through a heart. And then we start developing that into our own aesthetics, and we're working in Houdini and different softwares. But in a way, like, the beauty comes through the accuracy of the scientific data. If we were to imagine what a heart beating would look like, I don't think it would be anywhere near as beautiful as the real thing. So we really pay attention to detail in working with scientists and using different techniques to capture these images. This image is the image we use to sell the idea. So when we get funding for projects, we work on a pitch, and then we try and get funding through art galleries and commissioners. So the idea is, when you scale the body up, so that the human body is the size of a forest, suddenly the trees look like lungs, and and your arteries look like rivers. And so you make this connection between humans and nature. The way we experience this giant human is through these, it's a bit of a confusing image, this, but we've got these portals, which are head tracking screens, and we position this giant human on his back, and then each screen is like a window into that body. And this is a photo of the final thing. So we've got, as you move around, it's using head tracking, and a bit like a sort of David Hockney, it collages together different parts of the body until you start to have an understanding that you're looking at the human ecosystem. Okay, and these are the final slides. Been collecting lots of images of humans and nature, and obviously we are nature, and it's expressed in the images better than words could ever say. And this is my final slide. Nature is not our enemy to be raped and conquered. Nature is ourselves to be cherished and explored, by my main man, Terence McKenna. So that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Barnaby. I think you have lots of heroes, so we're definitely gonna look into all of this and share with everybody. We're a little bit late, so I have a couple of questions for the public, but I will choose just one, and I hope we can dive into those questions later in the discussion. I just don't want to take the time of Iris.
Yes.
We have a question here. Have you joined forces with non-governmental organization or game companies that could transfer your methodology into virtual games, where citizen assemblies for non-human could take steps towards inspiring politics?
Oh, I love that. We are. I mean, our ambition. Everything we've done so far is they're like trailers to the big vision. And at the moment, we're a tiny little company, and we're trying to get the right partners to scale our vision. And so the real goal is has to be eyeballs, and you're not going to change anything unless you can reach a large audience, and especially that younger generation. So as we get older and as our company grows, we're basically looking. We're looking for those partners to scale the vision, and essentially to create large-scale virtual worlds where people can embody different organisms and experience ecosystems from different perspectives, but always based on real places, real data, real organisms. And we think that that's a great way for us to kind of just sow the seeds of awe and wonder into that younger generation that might be born in cities and heavily into gaming and virtual worlds. So that's our.
So I did not mention, but this question was from Frederik Lassen, and he actually we know him from this festival. So he is very much involved with in the research with the philosophy of Bruno Latour, and he created this first. It's a board game to try to translate the philosophy of Bruno Latour into something where we can, as a tool that we could use to to reconsider the hierarchy of our society and how we can recognize more entities. So I encourage you, Barnaby, to look at his work. Frédéric, you see that Barnaby is interested. Wonderful.
Yes, please, let's link up.
Yeah,
I'd
exactly.
love to have a chat with him.
I'm sorry, I see there's more question coming, but we have to jump to Iris' presentation, and we keep those questions for later for the discussion. Thank you very much, Barnaby.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Barnaby. That was fascinating. So our fourth and last speaker is Iris Chan. She's a student activist from Maryland, US, and she is the co-founder of Fridays for Future Digital. She's also an active member of the Sunrise Movement. And Iris, the screen is yours.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for having me here. Super excited to be here. So yes, as was just said, I'm Iris. I use your pronouns. I'm 17 and I'm from the US. And I'm co-founder of Fridays for Future Digital. And today I'm going to be talking about how we use technology to demand action. So here's a little bit about Fridays for Future Digital. For those of you who don't know who we are, so we seek to help Fridays for Future and other local groups create the most awesome digital campaigns.
Wait, Iris, can I interrupt you? Are you sharing something?
Yes.
Because we cannot see it. So let's just maybe...
It says that you should be able to see it.
No? Is it in the
second link?
Yeah.
It's not coming here.
Yeah, we're not seeing it yet.
Try resharing it or refreshing this page that's sharing this.
Maybe you have to refresh the page.
The second
where you're sharing.
page. One sec.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, it's coming through.
Yeah, it's coming. Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. Alrighty.
All good.
All you had to see was this beautiful screen of Fridays for Future Digital. And yeah, as I said, I'm going to be talking about how we use technology to demand action. So here's a little bit about us. So as I was saying, we work on creating awesome digital campaigns with the goals of making an impact on local climate justice issues across the world, and to also make the climate movement more accessible and inclusive. And so we started in April 2019. We started with just 2 people, with myself, my other co-founder, George Zhang, who's also from the US. And some of the things that we have done, we had 8 months of nonstop campaigns throughout last year and this year, but mostly this year with campaigns like Defend the Defenders, which was very focused on environmental defenders and indigenous people across the world, and 𝙬𝙤𝙧𝙡𝙙𝙨 campaign, which I will get into a little bit later. Lots of patterns and bits of wisdom that we've learned on the way on how to make impact. And we are a global team of youth across the world acting online, and we have a budget of $0. So this is where we started. We started with Instagram. This is our roots, starting with with what we call digital striking, where we create a sign about the climate crisis to raise awareness about certain issues, or generally raise awareness, and to post that on our Instagram. But we've expanded beyond just digital striking, and I'll get into that a little bit more. And this is like all the people who digital striked on Earth Day of this year, and it just started out with myself, with my co-founder George, and then it slowly grew. So yeah, that's our Instagram, and then we've expanded onto Twitter. Then I'll get into a little bit about how we've used Twitter to take action, and also using Medium as well to write these blog posts to amplify the voices, especially of BIPOC and MAPA individuals through Medium. And so now I'm going to get into these main themes regarding technology and campaigns, and talk about digital campaigns and how to create change with them, how people participate in digital actions, how we use digital tools for our campaigns and why software is so important for activism. So it's a little bit about digital campaigns and change. So digital actions have a specific target, meaning that you can ensure your voice is directed at something. And they're also great at raising awareness, just like with the digital strikes. The digital strikes started out as a tool for raising awareness, to get people to be aware of what's happening with the climate crisis. Although it's only useful if we channel that awareness into action, which is what we have learned how to do over the last year. So if we remember this great example of how lots of teens used digital tools to take action, with lots of TikTokers and mostly young Gen Z teens who used the internet to troll our former president, and to really show, to really, I guess, to show his failure in taking action on COVID because of these huge rallies that he's having with no safety and stuff. So like that's an example. And so in our digital actions, we focus on starting from the grassroots. When we help a campaign, we try to uplift the grassroots movement behind the campaigns. We don't try to start our own campaigns without working directly with the local groups. This is something we've worked on throughout many months. And our direct digital campaigning should always help the ground movements. And an example of this is the 𝙬𝙤𝙧𝙡𝙙 campaign that I'm going to get a little bit more into. And so some of the tools that we use were click-to-tweets and petitions, and so many other ways that we helped. And eventually, this campaign was a great success. So now on to the 𝙬𝙤𝙧𝙡𝙙 campaign. So the 𝙬𝙬𝙧𝙡 campaign was a campaign that we started in August of this year. And so it's all about this Escazú agreement, which is this environmental treaty in Latin America and the Caribbean that seeks to improve access to environmental information, to improve democratic practices, and to protect environmental defenders and increase human rights, all in Latin America and the Caribbean. And it's really important because those regions are some of the most dangerous places for environmental defenders. And it was kind of a great way to continue our Defend the Defenders campaign, which is all about environmental defenders. And so what we did here was our digital action was an open letter where we got over 10,000 people from across the world to sign on in support of the Escazú agreement. And we even got so many environmental activists across the movement, including Greta Thunberg, to sign on. And yeah, and so we also had tweet storms and email storms to target specific politicians in Latin America and Caribbean, especially certain countries that were crucial to getting this agreement passed. And we were at a very strict deadline of getting 2 more countries to sign it by September 26th. And we were basically eventually able to get there with Argentina and Mexico. And even after we finished our campaign, we kind of continued making sure that everything kept going. So now on to some cool tech that our team uses for our campaigns is the toolkit. And so a toolkit is basically a link that has all the essential information about a campaign. It has a campaign brief that has all the important information that you need to know about the local issue and the urgency of why this issue matters. And it includes the specific links to specific digital actions that you can take, and it will direct you to tell you how to take certain actions. And so these are the two technologies that we use. We use Coda and we use Google Docs. So Google Docs is the very simple version that most people know because we use it more on a daily basis, and it's more accessible because you can use it on your phone and such, whereas Coda is not as accessible because it's very hard to use on your phone. But that's the reason why we mostly use Coda for our toolkits is because it generally looks better, it's more organized, and there are more tools and more buttons that can really make a really clean toolkit. Just because of how basic Google Docs is, you cannot have different layers, and it really helps for people to understand how they can take action, and everything is just all in one. And so this is right here is our current campaign toolkit right now. We are doing a campaign on racial justice and the intersections with climate justice. And so every campaign, we have a toolkit that has all the information about the different local issues related to racial justice and the different digital actions that you can take. And so this is a little bit touching more back on to 𝙤𝙬𝙧𝙡. And so this is usually what our toolkits look like. Another great action we had was we had people to change their profile pictures with the profile picture generator to raise awareness about the 𝙤𝙬𝙧𝙡 campaign. And this, we pushed people to sign the open letter and to take 10 minutes of action by digital protesting and by tweeting and by sending emails sending tweets like this one to urgently get these officials in Latin America and Caribbean to ratify and sign this agreement. But we made our open letter the main action. It was very simple for anyone to sign, for anyone to share. And so this is a little bit more about how we do digital storms that can really make more impact than just raising awareness, that can actually result in some really good victories. Click to tweets and click to emails are low tech, no budget options to center people's voices. Those are some of the links that we'll include in toolkits that just have templates. You can just easily click to tweet, and you can, and along with so many other people, and it can really get the attention of these people. And comment storms, this is something that we're still trying to do more of. This is free software made by friends at Greenpeace to storm social media posts with comments demanding to demand the kind of action that we want. And we also did this with 𝙤𝙬𝙧𝙡 campaign to a smaller degree. Another thing that I'm going to say that I said at the beginning is we don't have a budget, and we think these tools should be known and available to all youth movements and to all climate groups. And so this is a Coda toolkit that has a guide to all of our digital actions. Okay, so here's a little bit more about the role of digital technology. So the role of digital technology is for social movements is that it's free mostly, and so since we are a non-incorporated youth movement, we can't afford the tools that Greenpeace can. So we find ways to do everything we can for free, and what we do can be done across the climate movement. So we can to make every movement more effective by making it easier to act and to share information. And technology is connecting us as we are just a ragtag group of activists from around the world acting all together. So yeah, that's all I have for today. And does anyone have any questions? And also this is our social media where you can learn more about our digital campaigns and all the work that we've done. And I've made a bit.ly for this presentation so you can look back at it.
Nice, thank you, Aris. That was really interesting and informative presentation. And I think that you also with this presentation already answered a lot of questions that me and Marie had discussed while we were looking at Fridays for Future Digital. But I wanna get a little bit more in depth with something that you mentioned during the presentation, which is that these digital tools should help the ground movements, right?
Yeah.
So what is you think that the connection? How do you make sure that you are helping indeed like these ground campaigns, and what happens behind this kind of like organization in digital platforms? Do you what kind of platforms do you use to connect and to talk with people in the ground?
Yeah, we use all sorts of platforms to talk with people on the ground. And so because of the worldwide network we've created, it makes it very easy for us to connect with different groups all across the world. And so we mostly use like Slack and WhatsApp to really get to the groups on the ground and to really have the best conversations with them, so that we are serving them justice as much as possible, because we just provide an avenue for their voices to be amplified, as that's like one of our main goals of FF Digital, is to also really give representation to those who are least represented. And yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
We have a question from the public. Masha Gromova asks, what action are you the most proud of and why?
Yeah, I definitely have to say that the 𝙬𝙤𝙧𝙡𝙙 campaign that I just talked about, I think that's the one I'm most proud of, because it really represents the moment we achieved an actual victory, because we basically were able to get the 𝙬𝙤𝙧𝙡 agreement basically signed, and we got countries in Latin America to sign on to it, and we created it started with us, and we created this like worldwide international solidarity movement, and we also got other organizations on board, like Re-Earth Initiative, and then Re-Earth Initiative got Amnesty, and so many people came on to really support the campaign. Yeah.
Thank you. I had because you did not mention it, and we were really impressed about it with Patty, because I don't know if it's clear for everybody that Fridays for Future Digital, so what you co-founded is not directly, of what was not in the beginning directly connected from Fridays for Future, and you created this because you wanted to participate while you had to go to school. And can you tell us a little bit, how you started this, and how now you got recognized, or somehow this little story of this year with.
Yeah, so you want me to talk a little bit about like the FF Digital story, and like, is that what I'm getting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So as I said, so I started FF Digital with my friend George Sang when we were both trying to participate in the Fridays for Future movement, but we only saw that physically striking every Friday from school seemed to like be the only option, and we were really inspired by Greta Thunberg and such, and we really wanted to support this movement, but we didn't want to just not be part of the movement and not take action just because we couldn't strike, because we believed that we still had voices that had to be heard, and we knew that there was probably other people who also felt the same. And then we started out with those small pictures that I showed you earlier from our Instagram page. We just started with a few people, and then eventually when COVID came around, and everyone went inside and people stopped physically striking, people started to digital strike a lot more, and because Greta Thunberg encouraged people to digital strike, that gave us a lot of attention, and so that's how we became more worldwide because we saw the importance of digital actions, not just during COVID, but also to help to help local groups really make impact in certain areas that are also crucial to combine with physical actions. Like they don't replace each other; they go together. And so we eventually, through lots of different campaigns, we shifted and found our niche in the movement of these important digital actions and of how to do things right.
Thank you very much. I think we're gonna take a little break before we start this discussion, because we started this whole symposium a little bit late. We're gonna try to. We are not gonna finish at 8 exactly, but we're gonna try to not push too far for our public. So let's take 5 minutes, and then we come back and we dive into these big topics we prepared.
Yeah, and we know that there are maybe a little bit still questions in the chat, but we'll make sure that your questions reach the speakers, and if not during the discussion, afterwards, we'll make sure. Okay.
Cool. See you in 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And we're back here with all our guests, and we're going to start our discussion. Because we started a little bit late, we just agreed to stay here until 8:20, so we hope you stay with us. And we're going to start with a few themes that we thought about with Patty, but of course we're taking all your questions in, and we're going to try to bring them all to the screens.
All together, yeah.
Yeah.
We've been at a lot of we've done a lot of reflecting on how the work of our speakers also relate to one another, and how do we make sense of them in the context of trying to connect people with. With maybe like the natural world, like animals and plants, but also just to unlock maybe perspectives that we didn't have access to before. And we noticed that for Natasha and for Barnaby, it was really clear this kind of tone that you adopt in your work. So for Barnaby, it's a lot about wonder. So trying to push this feeling of wonder into the people that use these installations. And then we kind of compare the work of Natasha that explores a lot more this feeling of fear and horror, and like a little bit more like macabre tones. So we're wondering what your thoughts were on how these kinds of feelings make people engage in your message, and then also for Mace and for Iris, we were wondering whether you would position your work somewhere in this spectrum of wonder and fear, or is it something that you think about in your work? So whomever is ready to comment on this topic first, please feel free to jump in.
It's going to be a nice mess.
I'm happy to kick things off. One, I suppose it can sound quite like or like words are used, and sometimes they can, I guess, they can become a bit grating, but maybe the focus of or the attention should be put on the like the genuine feeling. And I don't think awe and wonder is something that we experience. It's almost like falling in love. It's a powerful thing. It's not maybe so easy to trigger that sense, but I think that it can creep up on you, and often people relate to a sense of awe and wonder. You could say that one way of thinking about that is that you feel really small in the presence of something greater, and it's a kind of shift from thinking about yourself and dissolving into like a larger, expansive state of mind, and so most commonly that's happening through encounters with nature, I think, and so I guess just trying to sort of really dial into that as a mechanism to generate curiosity, and it spirals out, doesn't it? Because I suppose you could say things that you're finding interesting or that you're engaged in or that you care about, that it's all kind of stemming from this initial impact. And I think that's what the awe and wonder is. It's like it's a genuine sort of transition point where a good example would be the Netflix film about the octopus, if anyone's seen that, My Octopus Teacher. That, there's people might be familiar with octopus, but when you spend so much time understanding the behavior and sort of the more you get to understand about how curious and amazing this creature is, you end the film with a sort of a deeper connection to it. So for us, science is like a great way of opening that door. Not to say that there's anything wrong with fear either. I think the whole palette of emotions they're all there to be explored, and I don't think there's a right or a wrong necessarily.
I think when Patty brought this question, the intention was not to oppose wonder to fear. It was more somehow the use of the public's reaction into the idea of engagement. So that you just indeed use different emotions. Does Natasha, because Patty had an intense experience watching you work, is this something that you see more often with your public from this work?
I heard Patty were saying that it's like a more macabre and horror-ish vibe, but actually, as I mentioned earlier, I use this fiction as method. In the video, I forgot to explain it earlier that the method is text assembling, which is heavily fictional work. In one part of the scene of Best to Power video, there was a revolution of cockroach society, which I appropriating Yasser Arafat 1974 UN General Assembly speech and Sukarno in Bandung Conference 1955. Because Yasser Arafat's speech is it's the need of building a liberated society due to world crisis of unnecessary energy that have been wasted for war. And Sukarno takes on Bandung Conference is to unify non-partisan countries, reflected the fiction that I want to build, collaborative survival. Also, I wanted to capture the idea of impossible love, a platonic love that nourishes and remains despite the impossibility. Like the idea of crossbreeding is indeed a frightening thought. However, there's a possibility of love story between human and cockroach. But what do cockroaches think of us humans? I'm not sure if I can answer that question, but we can start to imagine, do cockroaches find humans useful for their lives? For 1,000 years, cockroaches have been sustained and survived without the presence of human. So I'm now wondering that maybe cockroaches don't need humans. Maybe human thinks we are more important than cockroach.
Yeah, nice. No, and I think that there's definitely a lot more to your work, and my reaction when I saw it, I think brings a lot of what I've learned, or like this kind of like ideas of aversion to cockroaches that have surrounded me. So it's definitely I think my experience is very loaded to what I bring, like the baggage of.
But is it then something? That this shift was Barnaby was talking about? I think I find it back here that this shift of where do we situate ourselves as human or as public from this experience? Does this whatever emotion the artwork use to try to change our perspective towards a cockroach or towards nature or towards technology or yeah, anything.
Yeah, and maybe Mace, I know that this is not perhaps something that is explicit in your work, but do you feel that there's this kind of reaction from the like your audience that you want to that you feel that can kick out this engagement and this feeling of caring about these experiences, maybe situated something somewhere between like wonder and fear and other feelings.
Yeah, I mean, I think fear and wonder are kind of dichotomous, and I've never really like seen them in that way. Obviously, like they intertwine, and they're kind of made up in a spectrum together. But you know, when we think about fear and like what fear is like a reaction. You know, I mean, I'm at least placing it in like, you know, our lack of understanding with the with the unknown, or some type of looming threat that we're able to perceive in our conscious mind. And that's absolutely something that, you know, indigenous futures creators are like actively thinking about, is like, and maybe have a different perspective than like, say, colonial states or, you know, populations, is like, you know, the things that concern us as indigenous communities, and instill fear in us, might be a little bit more, might be different, and we might be able to provide some insights in there. But at the same time, I think like wonder and like wonder is so, it's kind of like positively framed, whereas fear is like negatively framed. So with wonder, I see this imaginary work happening, and I see it, you know, reflected in my work, like in Terra Nova, for example, and then the work of the other Indigenous youth participants in our digital media workshops, like actively speculating and therefore, you know, projecting themselves into the future. And I think that can be like a wondering exercise, if we can use wondering as like an adverb. And I think it's really important for Indigenous youth specifically because for so long, at least in our context here in North America, you know, the past 500 years, like Indigenous communities have been told that they are from the past and are continued to be relegated in, you know, media, popular media and stuff, as belonging to the past, as historical entities. But, you know, I'm kind of proof that, you know, we're here still, we're going to continue to be here in the future. And so I think these kind of outside influences influencing us as Indigenous individuals, like partially encourages us to forget that we will still be here in the future. So I think doing these workshops really helps, you know, this generation of up and comers, you know, that I kind of consider myself to be a part of, to think, you know, what does my Indigenous future look like, and how can I be, you know, someone who can have these types of dialogues that we're having right now, you know, using my work as like an entry point into it. So yeah, absolutely. I think those are super strong concepts that we work with, and yeah, definitely reflected in the work I do.
Nice, thank you, man.
That's also really nice, because this is a perfect transition to the next thing we wanted to talk about the potential of technology. So you all use technology to express your message, and we were wondering, how does that shape what the experience of the audience? How do you see technology? How does it transform from your idea to the shape of the experience of the audience? I hope you understand what we mean.
Yeah.
Yeah? Would you like maybe Mace?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think partly, I suppose, the relationship of technology and creative expression goes back to, you know, handprints on caves or using clay, and you know, there's been relationships of expression and technology since the dawn of time, and but what we have now is a technology, at least what I'm finding interesting about the technology in terms of this sort of new wave of tools that can hack the senses and create immersion. I think that's a really interesting angle. I think before our ability to kind of create virtual reality, then there was always a step of the imagination to go, you know, you were always in your skin, and it was a step of the imagination to lose yourself in a book or in you know, in a theatre, but you were always like, your body was one place and your imagination can take you through the screen into other worlds. And I think our tendency to lose ourselves in stories is maybe has a kind of deeper, maybe there's a deeper meaning there in relationship to sort of who we are in our essence. And I kind of feel like now our ability to create fully immersive environments, it's like it starts to suddenly open up these possibilities that, you know, think about experiences as a human that don't require any dialogue, like eating an apple. Like, try and explain what an apple tastes like to somebody in words. You know, there's sensations that we experience all the time that are completely lost when you're reading a book or when you're looking at a film. It might be that the words can trigger a kind of embodiment or a feeling of that sensation. But so I think the exciting trajectory of these technologies that immerse the senses is that you can take yourself, this idea of empathy or seeing the world from another perspective, like perspective shifts are suddenly like full body multi-sensory, even though you're always, you know, everything you experience is always through your senses. It's not like we can really put you in the body of another, but you can create experiences that I guess offer up this perspective shift in a really powerful way. So maybe that's as that technology sort of rolls out into the hands of more and more people, you know, where's it going to be in 10 years time? The you know, the clumsy world of VR, given that 5G is about to land, and that your iPhone can track your face and other people and swap, you know, give you a body swap. It's this blurring of the virtual world with the real world is going to get more and more towards a kind of Hollywood photorealism, and so in that space, you know, I guess we're just interested to be working with the technology to carry a message of reconnecting to the planet and the organisms rather than just disconnecting. And I'm sure there'll be lots of all of it. There'll be the zombie shoot 'em ups and everything else, but it's happening, so we're just engaging with it.
That's super interesting, especially like the last point, Barnaby, is like this even there's like a dichotomy within the media that's actually like the technologies that are actually developing in the media that is being produced with them, in the sense of like a very human-centric, photorealistic, you know, push towards, you know, how much information can we cram into these new technologies versus like what type of stories can we tell. And I think your projects especially strike this amazing balance between you know, utilizing the full potential of those new technologies and rendering systems and like virtual spaces, but also balancing it with this incredible, like, you know, sensory storytelling that's happening. And I think there is a connection, you know, between kind of what we do at AbTech and that, in the sense that we use relevant tools, but we don't necessarily use the technology to you know, make the most visually impressive thing. We're much more interested in like the stories and the emotions and feelings associated with the things that we create.
Awesome.
Is there because we had what you mentioned also brings us a little bit. But you talked about 5G and this better and better technology and all this actually super cool stuff. It's bringing to us and how this is how we can experience your work of all of you. But how do you integrate in your process also this problematic of this always growing technology and related to a growing economy and this always wish for more and growth, which is typical of our capitalistic economies and which is definitely part of the problem here, and which is something all of us are trying to change. And how do you integrate this in your work?
Yeah, so if I can add something to this, no, because I indeed we thought we see a lot of potential in using technologies to to kind of like reach your audience and unlock these perspectives, but then again, all of this, like making all of these technologies and then making them more efficient, do require a lot of like natural resources and require a lot of like labor as well. So if we just kind of like unleash the evolution of technologies without thinking about how all of the things that these technologies are taking, there are maybe certain risks that kind of like tip like this balance that we're trying to do with our work, right? Which is to unlock this kind of like more inclusive, more holistic view of our relation with with everything around us. Yeah. So is this something that you consider?
Yeah, I think like so. You know, the wave that's pushing, the kind of tsunami of technology that's unraveling is. If you think about sort of the younger generation and how sort of ingrained it is, and I think essentially, like, you know, who am I, like, amongst, you know, these giants? I'm a storyteller, and so in order for if there was ever to be any hope for us as a species, it would be to create a new story that resonates with that younger generation, so they stop seeing themselves as separate from nature and start to understand that everything is in cycles and holds itself in balance. And so with that realization, with everything that you consume, you start asking more questions. And for me, that's the heart of it, is like sowing these stories that are kind of science-led and asking the question of like where are you, like it's you, like you. It's like you can't pin you know, when your breath's connected to trees, like I was saying, it's like it's really hard to pinpoint the individual. So when you talk about capitalism, it's always about growth and about individuals and, you know, what can you get for you. And so to erode that concept, there is no you. There's just the overall system and everything's connected within it. So suddenly being selfish isn't really an option, or at least if you are behaving in a way that's having a really negative impact, you're going to be aware of it through that process of seeing yourself in everything else. So I guess that's not to say that you shouldn't, you know, we as a company, we're engaged with our installations being carbon neutral and planting trees and offsetting, and we're conscious of all of that. And we're actually looking at mycelium at the moment to create our you can grow architecture in molds. You grow mycelium into molds and you can create structures from it. So we're engaging with all of that stuff, but I think also to not use the technology would limit us from getting that story out, especially to the younger generation. So that's kind of the way we see it, that the tech's going to evolve and it's a way of reaching billions of people in the future. But I was still trying to work it out. We're in our infancy, I'd say. I feel like David Attenborough with a black and white camera filming monkeys like that. You know, where's that going to be in 50 years' time?
Right.
It's going to be, yeah, I don't know. Are we going to be around in 50 years' time? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe if we manage to keep working together, maybe if
To find the right balance.
Natasha, does this relate to you? This problematic of use of the use of digital tools, or is this something? How do you integrate this in your work? Did you write the question for Natasha? Natasha, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, but not clearly. Can you repeat once more?
Yeah, it's a bit connected to a question which came into the public, but to relate to this critical reflection about the use of technology today when we want to reconnect with nature or shift our perspective or shift our relation with animals. How do you integrate into your process this reflection about these digital tools that we use?
Maybe I will answer internet and what is relation to cockroach, because on Path to Power website, it's like I was saying, cockroach in the net culture, and there's a pun intended, like cockroach as a bug in the computer world. In biology, both bug and cockroach are the same class of insect. I'm also currently doing research on dark web, and I refer the cockroach as the other, as bug is an error or glitch in the software. And I'm using the fictional phrase of beware of cockroach of the internet, beware of the internet bugs. Perhaps cockroach does not have any particular relation with net culture nowadays, except in meme culture. People share story about cockroach and easily goes viral. However, maybe in the future there might be a possibility something related to cockroach emerging in net culture vocabulary. But and because I think it's interesting to think about new embodiment of the technology and my work, because it pushed me and rethink my connection with the digital world and how it resonates with my daily life. And I think because I'm mostly doing anything in computer between laptop and phones.
Yeah, exactly, totally. I can see how it's also quite present. It's what makes it possible for you to create this like video productions as well, you know, and to create this like graphic representations of the cockroach in the way that you that you envision it. So I do see the connection between those things. Mace, what about you? Do you have like any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I've had a lot of thoughts actually when the other two panelists were speaking. I think maybe, you know, how I'm thinking about it is, you know, through this kind of lens of historical and ongoing colonization and its relation to technology. And I mean, even just thinking about what Barnaby mentioned as he was kind of concluding was like, you know, using an old-fashioned camera to film monkeys. Well, like that same act was like done to indigenous people, and some of the very first films were made, like, you know, as like cultural exposés of like what goes on in these indigenous cultures in terms of like protocols and religious activities and such. And then those things were put on display, and you know, entry fees were charged, you know, a penny a head, and like this myth of what our people were, who our people were, was like, you know, created, you know, as referenced in these historical like travelers, explorers accounts written in books. And you know, that's kind of progressed, you know, through video, through documentary filmmaking, through Hollywood, through you know, the internet and other popular culture, and now it's in the digital realm. So the AbTech co-directors, Jason Edward Lewis and Scalinati, have really been thinking about how, you know, us as indigenous people of the present, how are we not only going to be consumers of this media that really is built around a very certain type of you know, white male perspective generally, and appropriate it, you know, for our own needs to tell our own stories. And I think it's really interesting what Natasha said about, you know, bugs in the system, because a lot of what Professor Lewis's work has been thinking about is thinking about how, when it comes to, you know, digital technologies, you know, from the hardware level to the software level, theoretical, you know, the spaces, the digital spaces that we operate within, the bugs that we come up against oftentimes are, you know, like actual, like built into the system and are like features. So one of the projects that he's been working on in recent years is this indigenous AI project, and I would encourage people to go check it out because it's really interesting, because he's been interested in gathering a whole bunch of people, indigenous folks from all over the world, and discussing, you know, what would indigenous artificial intelligence entities look like, and how would they be built, and really pushing back against this common conversation around AI and machine learning that's going on in these like big tech spaces these days. So, and how it's often spoken about, you know, as like this inherent good, when, you know, people are using it for a whole manner of complicated things like surveillance and yeah, like deep fakes, facial, like, you know, recognition and stuff. So yeah, just kind of taking a step back and saying, like, you know, what would indigenous made artificial intelligence look like? What would it do? And because, you know, we yeah, what would it do? And then you know, I think the next step for us as creators operating within these media spaces and as indigenous people is like, how do we start building the tools ourselves? I think that's kind of where we're at right now. Like, we've kind of mastered or getting very close to mastering the tools available to us, but, you know, the next step is actually finding a method and a way to start building our own virtual worlds and game engines and you know, artificial intelligence. I think that's kind of where we're headed.
Nice.
Um,
Thank you.
Can I respond?
Of course.
Yes, sure.
So, I because I just went back to field research in North Sulawesi, where I met indigenous groups in there. I was thinking that maybe technology has been centralized since the Industrial Revolution, and we need to see more alternative technology making that comes from the periphery. In my understanding, technology is not necessarily understood as universal form. Uh, by universal, I mean that every being has the same objective in regard to how we implement technology. And I think we need a decentralized type of technology making in which it's shaped and thought determined by the situation, condition of certain community. For example, when I was in Sulawesi, there's a group of community that the name of the collective was smartphone community. They use their phones, Instagram, TikToks, and to discuss the taboo issue of indigenous people in North Sulawesi, which was deemed by the society. And I really like their idea of bringing the memory of old ancestor and old collective memory to the current situation.
Nice.
I have because I have it's turning into my head now that because Barnaby, you were talking about this idea of a whole that we have to start seeing ourselves and the planet we live in and everything as a something which is totally connected, which cannot be without the other, and in the same time we are talking about maze and this aboriginal cyberspace, which are specific to this community. And Natasha, you also talk about this alternative group creating specific spaces. And is this something? Can it come together if we start developing, having more and more space for all these less represented groups? Can this come all together and become this whole, which would be maybe this better space, or should we be patient, or is it something which actually makes sense to develop right together or at the same time?
I think for me, like, diversity is kind of what makes our communities stronger. And I think, and when I say diversity, I mean like true collaborative, like, conversations that happen within, kind of like a social structure that is non-hierarchical. So I love having these types of conversations with folks from around the world, because I feel like we all bring something, unique and special to the table. And I think really interesting generative ideas can come out of it. I think it's different when we start thinking about, diversity in terms of just like that representational sense, because, having bodies in the room doesn't necessarily mean that those bodies have as strong of a voice as, say, the authorities coming from the top. So if we, what Natasha was saying about decentralization is really important. And I think more decentralization can really happen. And then also what Barnaby was saying too about, decentralizing just the human-centric, philosophy of like how we live our lives, and to bring in more diverse perspectives, human, cultural, all of these different, identities that we hold, multiple identities that we hold as individuals, but then also incorporating, the next step would be incorporating the more than human beings, and even, even spirits and ancestors that, exist within us and within our worlds as well. So it's really big, complicated thing, that question. But I think, yeah, acknowledging our diversity and upholding our differences as, equal and intersecting is really important.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think also like, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Barnaby.
Just jump. I'm a big fan of David Abraham. He's got a book called Spell of the Sensuous, and I realise I've said I'm a fan of almost everything. He's a good one. He's a goodie, and he talks about animism and indigenous wisdom quite a lot, and I think just there's. Yeah, I suppose there's so much to be learnt. If you think about, we've grown up with, probably all of us have grown up with computers, and we're quite tech, and we've gone through school and probably quite a Western education. But if you've spent when sort of understanding indigenous wisdom through David Abraham's book, there's a sensitivity that comes when your journey through life has been in relationship to all of the other voices in the forest and all of the other organisms. So you've got direct sensory relationships to all of these things, so that there is no like reaching for a can of tuna, and you're everything you're in relationship to. And so, for example, if you overfish the salmon one year, you see the next year has an impact, then you adjust your behavior because you're in relationship. And humans all of our senses have evolved. The shape of our faces, everything that it is to be human has evolved over these colossal timescales in relationship to everything else. And it's only recently that we've kind of put ourselves in these boxes with all this technology, and we're mainly in human-to-human relationships now. But so it's really interesting, I think, that. Well, I just think that there's a lot of wisdom and a lot to be learned from that kind of sensitivity that comes out of the indigenous wisdom. And I don't really know much about it other than through David's book, but it strikes me that if we're going to survive, we need to become more sensitive and more compassionate towards everything, all the other beings that we share this merry journey with.
Nice. And can I add something to this? Because I think we're getting really close to this vision maybe that Marie and I had when we were discussing the goal of this symposium, which was kind of like recognizing that we are in a digital age, and that we are all doing our work through these digital tools, but at the same time we have this feeling that we have to connect with other than human beings that we don't categorize as technology. Like maybe there are other species, or maybe they are plants, or and so we thought, well, it seems like we are reaching a point where we could have this perspective on like a whole system, through the term like techno ecosystem, where it's not that we are masters of the technologies that we're using, or that we are in like the top of a species hierarchy, but we just interact with these technologies, and we interact with other species, and we kind of discover what is our sort of like a position that is not human-centric in this kind of like new world, in the future. Yeah,
I think this was, and then now with all this this came out of our discussion, but especially of experiencing and discovering your works.
Yeah.
So that's. Is this something you understand when we say this? Is this something we can maybe achieve when we, because I want to do this because this techno ecosystem was really so not seeing a technology only as a tool but as part of this ecosystem that trees and us and technology would be part of, and that it would support each other somehow. But yeah, I guess this is what we were already talking about a little bit. So. Yeah. But so, do you like this term?
Do you recognize your work as part of it? Maybe?
Yeah, I suppose everything's natural. You know, that there isn't anything sort of synthetic or unnatural. It's all sort of flowering out of this planet, and things can be out of sync and out of balance. You know, it's funny how, like, you know, the discovery of the wood wide web, or how mycelium works in forests, and sort of the interconnections between many trees and plants in forests through the mycelium, sort of mirrors the human internet in terms of you know, structures, and so there's yeah, I guess the thing is with all of this is just to try and find a place of balance before it's too late, and understanding that like everything's got a limit, and maybe a combination of the technology and a shift in how we see ourselves in relationship to everything else can maybe sort of save us just in time. But you know, life will continue anyway, won't it? Just whether we make it through. But in a way, it's. I heard it described as like we've got this. The oil has given us so much energy that we've had this kind of. We've been. It's almost like all of these towers and cities. They're kind of like these big erections of technology, and we've built these spirals of like. Human to interaction. We've totally got lost in this thing, like woo, these giant techno spirals. It's all fueled by the energy that we're pulling out of the ground. And you know, if we didn't have that, I guess we wouldn't be so lost in our own. We kind of got a little bit lost in it. The house party's got a bit wild, and we're starting to trash the place. But I've kind of totally gone off piste. But anyway, I'm hopeful. Everyone I know seems really lovely, so I'm hopeful for us. I just think we got lost in our own little gallivanting party.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know if it's like the end, but I did not bring a lot of questions from the public because they're having with themselves like a deep discussion about artificial intelligence and how is this necessary or not for. So yeah, I didn't find a way of bringing it to this specific discussion, but this was also part a little bit of our discussion, that how not only to relate to nature, but to those new entities that we are creating, so artificial intelligence and robots, and that we hope that this discussion and this work you are all doing can also help us to develop this better relation with these new entities, which are more and more present in our techno ecosystem.
I love this term. Maybe it's. I think.
We can. I mean, if one of you want to add something or close this discussion, or if you want to meet again to talk again,
we're up for it. But we don't want to let you with something that you have inside and you want to say before we finish the symposium. So.
Everybody's.
I'll just say thank you for having me. It was really awesome to get to talk a little bit about what I do, and to also just be in discussion with some awesome minds and creators.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
Yes. It was a thank you for taking so much time diving
It's
into.
interesting.
I can't keep on studying.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you for you know your participation, and we managed to do it despite the distance, and it was a really interesting experience for us all, and we really appreciate each of your perspectives in this discussion.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, I don't know if you can realize, but you seriously transform our festival and ourselves as an organization, but as individual. So this is what you're doing is working on us 100%.
Yeah,
And
yeah, in my research as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
So it's thank you for this, and thank you for tonight.
And thank you everyone at the home
who followed
for
this.
following this and being so active in the chat. Yes, we're gonna make sure that your questions reach the speakers.
Great.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much, man.
Bye.
Bye.